What are the 9 massive mistakes that I made that I am not making now after over 100 hours in 1.0? That's what this video is all about. In this short video, my goal is to give you all the tools you need to avoid these really common pitfalls and have way more fun with the game. So let's jump right into the meat of the video. So this is the biggest mistake I made when I first started playing the game, and I think the easiest one to correct. You're probably super worried about your class, worried about exactly what you should be playing, how you should play the game. Guys, I want to put you at ease. There's excellent companions in this game. You can ultimately beat the game with every single class in the game. I do have class guides and other tips if you're starting out in the game to help you make it easier on yourself, but ultimately every single class will work, and you shouldn't be restarting the game 15 times unless you're a content creator like myself, worried about which class is going to do best for you. Ultimately, each class is enjoyable in its own way, and I don't want you worried too much about classes. But if you are worried about which class you should play as a beginner, I would highly recommend Paladin. I think it's the easiest class in the game to play, and most of the melee-oriented high HP classes like Paladin and Barbarian are super great for a beginner. So if you don't know anything else, I would recommend playing these classes. They are incredibly fun to play. Also check out my class tier list if you want a more in-depth discussion on this. But let's go on to mistake number 2. One of the most common mistakes I see, and something I did as a content creator that definitely hurt my enjoyment of the game, is rushing through the game and not enjoying the dialogue, guys. Slow down a little bit, enjoy the dialogue, talk to people. That's ultimately the greatest strength of this game. And so you shouldn't be rushing through your playthrough because your buddy is in Act 2 or Act 3. Ultimately, they're rushing through the game. They're going to hurt their own enjoyment of the game. They're probably then going to replay the game and actually slow down. So do it right from the beginning. Slow down, talk to everybody, explore everywhere, and really take your time. I promise you, you're going to have a much better experience. So here's one you probably haven't heard before, guys. Not playing as the Dark Urge is a massive mistake. Guys, if you only plan to play this game once or you have limited playtime, I would highly suggest playing as the Dark Urge. Some of the devs have actually said this is the most heroic way to play the game. I honestly think, guys, that the Dark Urge has one of the best storylines in gaming, and you are seriously doing yourself a disservice if you don't play as the Dark Urge. Now, if you are playing multiple playthroughs, I would suggest playing something else for the first playthrough, but then immediately starting a Dark Urge playthrough. Some of the items are extremely unique, and the dialogue and storyline is amazing and incredible. Do yourself a favor, play as the Dark Urge. This next mistake is one of the easiest to make and the easiest to fix, and that is understanding the rule of evens. What does this mean? It means two things. If you're doing ability improvement, you want to increase your ability scores in even increments. So 14 to 16, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 18 to 20, whatever the number is, you want to increase in even increments. This is because of how D&D rules work. I don't want to go too deep into it, but basically you only get bonus modifiers at even increments. So do not increase a skill from, let's say, 12 to 13. That's actually giving you nothing. Go from 12 to 14 or from 14 to 16 in either your primary or secondary attribute. The rule of evens also extends to feats. When you're multi-classing with feats, you always want to understand that you get feats for 4 levels of a class. That means that you should always be multi-classing in increments of 4. So maybe 4 in Barbarian, and then 4 in whatever Warrior, or 8 in Warrior. You should not be doing 2 of this, 3 of this, 4 of this, because that's going to be very inefficient and you're going to miss out on feats. And you only get up to 3 feats in the game at level 12. So you do not want to miss even a single feat. One of the easiest ways you can ruin your enjoyment of Baldur's Gate 3 is focusing too much on min-maxing and multi-classing. If you live in the Baldur's Gate 3 builds Reddit, if you are constantly scanning for new builds, looking up build guides, trying to think about multi-classing, trying to think about which skills you're going to take, feats you're going to take, guys, this will ruin your experience of the game. Ultimately, you want to take a very simple build guide, you want to roll with it, and you want to enjoy it and customize it to your needs and your playstyle. You do not want to be syncing for hours and hours on how to min-max and multi-class. Once you have enough experience in the game, those strategies will start to come to you. You'll gradually learn from other community members. You don't need to rush it. And believe me, this is one of the easiest ways as a new player to feel overwhelmed and to ultimately start to get frustrated and anxious about playing, which it should not be about, guys. This game should be about fun. Keep it fun. Don't hyper focus on min-maxing or multi-classing. So one of the easiest mistakes you can make in this game is syncing of the game in terms of good and evil. If you played Mass Effect, if you played KOTOR, if you played a lot of classic RPGs, you're going to know that they had an alignment system, and basically you got alignment points for doing good or evil actions. So you might play as a Paragon in one playthrough and a Renegade in another playthrough. Ultimately, Baldur's Gate 3 does not work this way. It's a game about choices, it's a game about decisions, and each choice is equally valid. So don't think in terms of good and evil. Think about what your character would do. Think about his or her roleplay. Get into your character and just experience the game in that way. Don't try to min-max. Don't try to focus on perfect decisions, because there is no alignment system, and ultimately all decisions, both good and bad, will have consequences, just like real life. So I really want to persuade you to focus on your enjoyment and what decision your character would make, not any sort of choice based on a good and evil alignment system, because it simply doesn't exist. So this mistake is deeply tied to mistake number 1, which is worrying too much about your class. Ultimately, guys, party composition is quite important in this game. Depending on which class you play, you really need to think about which other class would suit you best. One of the biggest things that I want to tell you to avoid is a mage-heavy composition. If you have 3 warlocks or 3 sorcerers or 3 wizards and 1 melee class, you are going to struggle in this game. This is the easiest way I've seen friends of mine really become frustrated, because ultimately mages tend to have very low hit points and they need a front line. So if you've ever played League of Legends, this is very similar in that you need your tanks or your healers in the front line, and then you need your DPSs in the back line. This is exactly the same way the Baldur's Gate 3 works, where you want your mages to be generally out of the action, not next to an owlbear like we have here. You want them to be far away, because ultimately your mages can oftentimes be one-shot, especially in the early game. So I really want to warn you about party composition. I would really recommend to have at least 2 tanks, so like a warrior and a barbarian, or other melee classes like a paladin and a barbarian, and then basically round your composition out, maybe with 1 support class like a cleric, and then have 1 spellcaster. Don't have more than 2 spellcasters in a party composition. It can make the game very challenging. One of the biggest mistakes you can make in Baldur's Gate 3 is not playing with others. Honestly, couch co-op is such a godsend in this game. I have so much fun playing with my wife in couch co-op. I have so much fun playing with my friends in online multiplayer. Guys, if you are not playing this in co-op, you are missing out. That is one of the biggest advantages to this game. You should absolutely take advantage of it, and I will promise you that your enjoyment will increase tenfold. Because ultimately, just like D&D, this is a game about connecting with other human beings, and that is going to give you the greatest enjoyment you're going to have with this game. So don't make this mistake. Play with other people, ideally in couch co-op, but online multiplayer is also fantastic. One of the most common questions that I get on my channel is, what do I do next? And the reason people ask this is because they're worrying about their class and they don't have a simple build basic plan to follow. So what I would recommend, guys, is take a very simple build guide. I have 2 on my channel, one about playing as 4 God of Thunder, the other is playing as Guts Berserk, that step you through each step. It's very important to pick an in-depth guide that will basically answer all your questions and show you how you can begin to play as a character. Then you can expand outwards and make your own choices. But ultimately, if you're a beginner, having a simple build, a simple basic plan to follow is going to decrease your stress levels immensely and help you to enjoy the game. So that is my final tip for this video. So I always like to do a summary TLDR at the end of a video. Ultimately, let me list my 9 mistakes that is easy to make and what to do. Ultimately, mistake number 1 is worrying too much about your class. Mistake number 2 is not talking to enough people or rushing through the game. Mistake number 3 is not playing as the Dark Urge, at least in one playthrough. Mistake number 4 is not understanding the rule of evens and how to level up and get feats. Mistake number 5 is not understanding min-maxing, multiclassing, and when you should do it. Mistake number 6 is syncing of the game in terms of good and evil. Mistake number 7 is having a poor and inoptimal party composition, oftentimes mage heavy. Mistake number 8 is not playing in co-op or online multiplayer. And mistake number 9 is not following a simple build basic plan for the game. I would suggest, guys, if you don't have the time to watch this full video, at least watch tip 1, 3, 7, and 9. Those are the most important in my opinion. So I'm putting this in to give you a TLDR and kind of compact that into something you can enjoy in a much shorter frame of time. Guys, if this video helped you, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. It would help me out tremendously. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.